I'm not really sure what I expected going into Immortals of Aveum. The idea of a first person magic shooter is something you rarely see devs tackle, but it's an idea I absolutely love, and if done right, could be an incredible experience. But with it being their first game, did Ascendant Studios do a good enough job with Immortals of Avion to make it worth you spending your time and money on it? Well, for me, I'm going to say yes, but for anyone else, I'm going to say no. For now, anyways, because even though I generally enjoyed my time with the game, definitely considering it is a roughly 15 to 25 hour single player campaign with no microtransactions, there's a lot going on with the game that holds it back from truly standing out among the absolute crazy onslaught of games releasing this year. And this starts with the combat. So the way the combat works is you have three types of weapons, or I should say magical gauntlets, that essentially act as your guns. Each one uses a different type of magic that represents its attack style, and is a combat system enemies use as well. This color-coded system falls under the colors blue, which represents your sniper and marksman style gunplay, green, which represents your full auto style gunplay like SMGs and LMGs, and red, which represents your CQC style gunplay like shotguns. Now, as you're battling enemies throughout the game, matching your magic color to theirs will allow you to not only break their barriers or armor that matches that color, but you will also do bonus damage if the color matches as well. So you end up with this gameplay loop where you're constantly switching between magic types to fit the battle on the fly, and this can be really fun at times, definitely with the additional totems and fury spells you have to use in battle alongside your normal weapons. Fury spells basically being supercharged abilities that drain your mana to cast them that fall under one of the three categories of magic, such as raining down green seeking orbs with the turret spell, or sending out the blast wave spell to clear enemies that have you surrounded. Then the totems are basically infinite use equipment that give you various of abilities to use, like Lash that can pull enemies closer to you, or Limpets that slows down enemy movement. Then on top of all of that, you do have a magic shield to block enemy attacks from all directions, and a blink dodge to help you avoid them. Even though I will say the blink dodge, I feel like it shouldn't have even been like a cooldown type ability. You should have just been able to like blink dodge. Maybe not necessarily infinitely, but just a little bit more. I think it would have helped combat flow just a little bit better. Just wanted to throw that out there. But anyways, I also can't forget you basically have a super ability where you can launch a super powerful attack that can tear through enemies called Dominion Magic that uses all three types of magic at once. Which, all of this sounds really amazing, doesn't it? And well, it is amazing, and I didn't even touch on everything you can do, but the problem is, it doesn't actually flow very well together in practice, and this starts with the general boring enemy variety throughout the game. As I was making my way through the game, I kept getting this feeling like the enemies don't really allow me to express my abilities in a fun, creative way when there is a bunch of them. It just feels like a mess most of the time. There's too many enemies attacking you, and not enough enemies acting in a support role. It just feels so imbalanced, definitely with how many sightlines there are in the areas you fight in. Not to mention spells get such over-the-top animations, you could literally become blind to what's even happening on the screen. I just couldn't see anything half the time I was playing, in which there would have been a way to like toggle down the animation effects. And it's not like I'm saying the game is hard. It's a pretty easy game. I have no problem saying most people won't have any issues with getting through. I played through on normal and I found the game to be very generous on giving you everything you need, from plenty of health and mana crystals to a ton of gold and essence for crafting, which I'll get to here after a bit. But I just wish there could have been more to the enemies, definitely when it comes to the bosses, which let me throw out right now, we are entering some light spoiler territory. You have been warned. But outside two of the bosses I played against in the entire game, the rest all felt very similar, which is so disappointing since in 1v1 fights, your abilities feel a lot more fun to use. But my point is, you have a game about magic, and you couldn't come up with some really cool creatures to fight. The closest they got to having some truly unique enemies were the Magic Eaters, which are invincible to your attacks, but can be stunned, which they used in a mechanically really cool way for like puzzle solving. But outside of that though, nothing really interesting. Even the final boss was a total letdown and basically a repeat of an earlier fight in the game. Though I will say the set pieces of the fight was top notch, and that's something I'll gladly praise the game for. The world of Avium that the game takes place in is really cool aesthetically. The art style and designs they use throughout the different areas of the game are pretty sick. They truly capture that fantasy magical world you would expect for a game like this, and that world is surprisingly fun to explore. Even though it might seem like a linear mission type experience, there are actually a ton of branching paths you can explore during and in between missions that give kind of this Metrovania type vibe, because the entire world is connected in Avium, so you could travel by foot, portal, or these giant glowing rivers of energy called ley lines. But it's completely worth your time to explore these hidden areas since they provide some of the best gameplay moments in the game, to me, that make full use of your arsenal. These include creative puzzles, hidden portals that take you to challenge arenas, and some stellar platforming that all leads to you getting better gear and upgrades. But if you're someone who isn't interested in this side content, you're not punished for not doing it, and can still breeze through the game without any real issues. And if you did skip any of the side content, you're free to roam around the world of Avium after the final mission to clear up anything you might have missed, and you actually have some bonus content you could do after clearing the game as well. Now, touching back on the crafting in the game, everything you can equip falls under the gear category. So weapons, totems, rings, and bracers. Different gear gives different effects and have different rarities. They also use different kinds of essence when upgrading based on the magic it's tied to. I didn't mind this system. Any gear you earn can be dismantled for resources, but if you ever decided you want that item back, you can craft it. I never felt like I struggled to get better gear or upgrade it. I don't know if it really added much to the game, but it didn't take anything away from it, and it was cool going out exploring the world and finding a legendary item in a chest, so I'll say it's just okay. Also, the same applies to the talent tree while I'm thinking about it. It allows you to upgrade your various magic types to have additional effects and damage. None of these really wowed me. They were mostly just quality of life improvements, so nothing really notable on that front either. It's just another aspect that could have been more fleshed out, but was still done okay and doesn't take anything away from the game or really add too much to it.
Holy shit.
You've never seen the Pentaside up close.
You saw how I lived under a giant bridge.
A giant bridge, sir.
The story of Immortals of Aveum wasn't too bad either. To sum it up, there's a war for magic going on. A young guy named Jack awakens as a rare type of sorcerer that can use all three types of magic, and it's up to him to save the world. Now, I really enjoyed the characters in this game. Jack was a great protagonist, and the voice acting for him and really all the characters by the actors were phenomenal. Now, the story does get a little messy at a certain point, and there is so much lore dumping in the game, it can almost feel like they tried to cram too much into one game. It really feels like the story should have been covered in 2 full games instead of 1. Also, the story has very strong superhero movie vibes to it. Now, I don't hate that since I love superhero movies, but I could see some people not vibing with it. As for performance, I played Immortals of Aveum on the Xbox Series X. I didn't experience any frame drops the entire time I played through the game, but I did have the game crash on me twice, and I had multiple instances where inputs quit working while I played the game, which was something I didn't expect. Then as for graphics, I know I said the art style and world design is great, but the game itself had this almost blurry, muddy look to it at times that didn't help with saying what was going on gameplay-wise at all. Then one last issue I had was the lack of features on console. The control scheme is absolutely terrible. It makes playing a chore at times. I can't believe there was no option to remap controls. Now obviously I could do this through the Xbox app, but then the button prompts on screen don't match what you're pressing on your controller, and I always find that a terrible experience since I'm a lefty and have to deal with this issue all the time since I always swap half my buttons around. So it would have been nice to see that in the game and maybe even an FOV slider because, I like my 105 FOV, but with that said, I could see this game playing amazing on mouse and keyboard, since with everything the game has going on, there's no way this isn't designed with that in mind. That is definitely the way to play this if you plan on picking it up on PC.
The last immortal.
Oh, the Moorbane. Thought you'd show.
Immortals of Aveum is a game that swings big but misses in so many areas, but despite that, I had a blast with the game and really do hope we get a sequel to it, because with a little refinement, Ascendant Studios could have something special here, though I will say if you plan to pick it up, I would probably wait for it to go on sale. I'm not sure if it's worth the price of admission for most people, but I can at least say I don't regret jumping into this magical world of Avium.